In this demo, we'll look at the Microsoft Agent Framework and how you can use background responses. So what we're looking at here is the accompanying blog for this demo, and the blog covers what background responses are, why you might want to use them, the basics, and how you can use this feature in the Agent Framework to create an AI researcher and newsletter publisher. The blog details how to set up the background responses mechanism. It discusses why you may want to do this, and for the purposes of this demo, we're going to create an AI news service agent, okay? And the purpose of this news service agent will be to research and parse a given list of URLs, RSS feeds, and company blogs, such as those from Microsoft, Anthropic, or OpenAI. The AI agent will then summarize this information and then output a newsletter that can be viewed at a later date with a summary of the news. The important part is that all of this happens asynchronously. What we'll do now is we'll jump out of the blog and dive into Visual Studio for a closer look at the code. So we are in Visual Studio, and if we look over to the right hand side here, we can see that we have an agent, a model, and our program.cs, okay? If we look here, we can see our agent has access to 4 function tools. One to search company news, one to search the Microsoft Foundry blog, another to search for agent framework updates in GitHub, and finally a function tool to generate the newsletter. We can expand each of those and take a little bit more of a closer look. We can see here in the search company news that we supply several keywords and then basically make an HTTP request and then pass those items that are returned back from the feed and add them to a list, and we take 5 of those items and return them. It's a similar process for the Foundry blog. An HTTP request, we grab 10 items and return them, and for Microsoft Agent Framework updates. And what we're doing here is we're fetching information from the GitHub repo. To do that, you do need a personal access token, which you can obtain from your GitHub permissions and settings. Finally, we have a function tool to generate a newsletter, and we've got some specific formatting rules, and we save the last runtime, okay? We also have some helpers for parsing data, such as the RSS feed, formatting the publication date, passing blog information, and detecting if items belong to GitHub. So we'll close our AI agent class and look at the news item model. So this is a very simple model, and it basically captures the main information that we would like to display in our newsletter. So now that we've looked at the agent and the model newsletter, we can dive into the program.cs file. And this is where our agent is hooked up, okay? So here we can see that we are creating an instance of the OpenAI responses client and creating an instance of our AI agent. We also tell it the function tools that our agent should have access to. We should expand line 69 and look at the instructions here, okay? So we do have some very specific instructions that form our system prompt for this agent. The first thing to call out is we specify the workflow for this agent. We have some critical rules that we also want our agent to adhere to, and we specify the newsletter format. A little bit further down here, we specify how the agent should behave if we have a publication date for each news item that is retrieved. And then we have some styling rules as well. An important rule to point out is that in line 96, or specifically rule 9, we can see that we also want our agent to generate predictions for the next 90 days along with a related confidence score. So that might be how AI will impact healthcare within the next 90 days. And all of these predictions are based on the news that has been researched from our defined resources and the outputs that are in the newsletter. So we'll close the system prompt. And here is where a little bit of the secret sauce happens. Down at line 135, and within this while loop, we start our stopwatch, okay? That just helps us gather some metrics, and we reset the agent status. If we have a peek at this, This is just a method here that sets the status to starting. With the status reset, we can invoke the initial call for our agent, okay? Now what's going to happen here is, because we are using background responses, we have a loop to continually poll and monitor that, okay? And that's what we can see at line 149 through to 157. Within this loop, we update the progress bar just to give us a visual cue that our agent is actually doing something. And we have a small delay. That's not every 1 second, it's like 200 milliseconds, okay? So we can actually delete that comment. The important part here, however, is at line 155, we constantly check within this loop to see if we have a continuation token. If we do have a continuation token, our agent is still doing its thing. When there is no more continuation token, we stop the stopwatch and then we clear our progress bar, and then we output the total time it took to generate our newsletter and for all of the function tools to run. So from the top, we have our agent, we have a news items model, and our background responses loop helps us continually pull this agent and update our progress bar. So we can run this and we get our console. We can ask our agent to generate this week's digest. Our background responses client has invoked the agent. It's now researching the topics. Just as a little bit of background information, the URLs and trusted sources are stored in a collection. So one of our trusted resources is the OpenAI news site. And just for some extra context, one thing that you could do is, when our agent is completed, as well as generating the newsletter, you may integrate this agent with something like SendGrid to send the newsletter to people who are interested in, or possibly push information onto a dashboard with predictions that are deemed high in confidence. And those might be topics that you would want to further research. So our agent has completed its research and generation of the newsletter. And we can see that the agent has output our digest newsletter file to this particular path. So we'll open our newsletter. So there is a small bug with the header, but we can see that we have the generated news date, right? And we've got some updates from the AI Foundry blog. We've also got our GitHub news from the repo. So there's been a breaking feature in hosting inside workflows. There's been a rename of the chat message store to the chat provider. We've also got links that we can click on. There's been some updates to Python. And then if we look at the Microsoft news, we can see that there are 5 stories, and we've defined that in the prompt to only select 5. We have news from Google. Again, we've got links that we can select on. We've got news from Anthropic and OpenAI, and our agent is giving us some tips here. So this is detailed in the system prompt also, that we're seeing increased collaboration between companies and regulations affecting encryption, and there's rising competition in legal tech. Our predictions, we have 5 for the next 90 days. More AI integration into legal frameworks, and I think that we can all agree that responsible AI and ethics are becoming a hot topic, especially with recent developments. So the confidence for this particular prediction is high, and I would tend to agree with that. We have some other predictions from OpenAI and Google, Microsoft and Anthropic, where Anthropic talks about how adoption in healthcare will challenge existing AI service providers, especially in regulatory environments. I think that is a medium to high confidence scoring personally. So that is our newsletter. That's been a quick run through of how you can use the Microsoft Agent Framework's background responses feature. You can find all of the code that was used to build this agent on the accompanying blog at jamiemaguire.net.